Well, hello, and welcome to this edition of the MilVet Podcast. My name is Bo Higgins, and I'll be the MC for the day. Proud to be here today with a friend of mine, Rich Comitz from the ACP, the American Corporate Partners. And I might have pronounced your name wrong. Is it Comitz or Comitz? Am I saying your name wrong?
I say comments. But
All right. Well, it's your name, so you know better than I. You know better than I. So, Rich Comitz, starting off the bat with that. But great to have you here today, Rich. And I know our paths cross a lot out there on the what I call the veteran hiring circuit. And again, thank you for your passion for what you do and helping so many veterans and military spouses to try to find their next role, get them some mentoring, and take care of them. But today, really wanted to kind of get some insights from you on your history, your background. I think it's always important for us to share, where we came from and how we got to where we are. There's so many folks out there that are transitioning are scared. It can be a scary place and a scary time to get out of the military or to pivot careers. And I think it's helpful always to see other folks that have made the transition before us. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to just kind of, if you would kick it off and talk a little bit about your military experience. You start with that, and then we can go from there. So I'd love for you to just kind of kick off with an intro. We'll talk about your military experience, and we'll go from there. All right?
sure. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be able to continue to serve with people like you to help our community. So I really do cherish that ability to do that and enjoy what we do on a daily basis. But a little bit about me. So originally from Pennsylvania, don't have a great military lineage in my family, but when it came time to figure out what I was going to do as far as college goes, I knew money was going to be tight. So I heard this academy, West Point, as a way to go to college for free. And so I was like, I should check that out. So sounds like a shallow reason, but sure enough, that was kind of my primary reason. Lucky enough, I got accepted into West Point and figured, well, I definitely don't know anything about the military, but I will when I'm done, and I'll have a job when I get out, since you have a commitment for 5 years afterwards. So went into West Point with that kind of attitude. Really enjoyed what I was doing there. Originally thought I was going to try to go to medical school, so I did major in chemistry while I was there, and graduated. Did not go to medical school, so I decided, well, I got a degree in chemistry, might as well go into the chemical corps, right, or the CBRNE, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, high yield explosives field, and so that's where I went in. I was commissioned in 1996, and end up spending more than the 5 years I had to commit to the military, because I really enjoyed what I was doing. The camaraderie, the missions, the people I work with was definitely keeping me engaged, and I really liked it. So end up staying in 23 years. Along the way, I think I counted, I moved 13 times in 23 years. Was able to get both a master's and PhD while I was serving, which was pretty amazing. And culminated my career by teaching at West Point. So I actually have a PhD in organic chemistry and taught at West Point in organic chemistry, which was very rewarding experience and really enjoyed it. So when it came time for me to talk about retirement and getting out of the military, I really didn't know what else I could do. I had no idea. I was kind of intimidated, anxious about what else is out there. So I kind of took what I thought was kind of the easier road, which was to go into higher ed, because West Point is a higher ed institution. I had some experience doing that, so I would think that the civilian world would see that as a good connection. I found myself applying to, I think, over 200 different jobs where didn't hear back from a lot of hiring managers. I think it was difficult for me to communicate to them what to make of my 23 years of service. Yes, I had probably about 9 years of college teaching and under my belt from all the times that I was out there doing that. But beyond that, I don't think people knew what to do with my leadership. So fast forward, when I was getting out, I started looking for jobs. Wasn't able to find jobs at the level I thought, but I was able to get into a university in the world of assessment. This was 2019, summer of 2019. Within 2 or 3 months, I ended up taking on another person's job that left. So kind of proved competent and that I can handle some stuff. And then, as most people know, in 2020 is when COVID happened. So I was in a meeting before or right around when we started closing down for COVID, and I mentioned we probably need to do something about, think about this long term. And they said, okay, Army guy, that'll be you. So I got the task of really trying to figure out what to do with the university's response to COVID. So it was actually a really rewarding experience, and I had a lot of autonomy and learned a lot about the university, the inner workings, all the different departments. Um, did everything from starting up testing facilities and vaccination sites and working with the state to all different things. But that was really good. I got kind of got my name out there, got to work with a lot of different people, well known throughout the university. And so when that was slowing down a little bit, the chief operating officer and the president basically said, "You're going to work for me now." So I became the director of operations, and basically was just the person that got uh, assigned to any project that they wanted to ensure got done on time, and it might need a little bit extra help. So I did everything from building renovations to space allocation to work with recruiting to working in HR at some point. And so after doing that for a while, I realized I might be able to do this now at some other organization where they will, kind of see my experience and maybe, one, pay me more than what I'm getting paid, but two, give me a level of responsibility that I had some room for growth. And that's when I came across ACP.
I just
And so I've been
if
at
I could,
ACP since 2019.
yeah, if I could just jump in for a second, I think it's interesting. The move from the military to the university world is I don't know if I know anyone else that has done that. That is definitely a unique path to take. I mean, I talk to a lot of transitioning folks, many of which are going back to school, but not many are going into academia. And it sounded like it probably is similar to other veterans. I mean, you said reaching out to 200 university or institutions trying to find that role had to be pretty frustrating, which I know, I mean, many veterans, I think, feel that way in the transition process, that they're applying into ATS systems all the time and get no feedback, right? That's one of the worst feelings in the world. And people do get super
Yeah.
angry and, upset about that process. But I mean, how did you break through? Was it? I mean, my guess is, and I don't know, but typically what I see on the veteran side, it's because of a personal connection that was made. What enabled you to actually get the job there? Because like, typically, again, if you're, I don't, I mean, I'm sure that your background was very different than every other teacher that was applying or professor that was applying, to Long Island University, right? So what was it that
Yeah.
eventually enabled you to get over the top?
Well, I'll tell you what my personal experience, but what I've seen at ACP, one of the biggest things is networking, right? And this wasn't even intentional networking necessarily, but my initial foot in the door at Long Island University was I applied for a job, and I got a call from the dean of the school that I applied to, and he said, "You applied for this job, but I want you to apply for this other job that hadn't even been announced yet." I'm like, "That sounds great." And it turned out that that person had been a department head at West Point several years earlier. So saw my background and credentials and knew that I could probably do the job. Now, funny thing was, or not funny thing, when I was in this situation, that individual left midway through my hiring process, and so he made it sound as if all I had to do was get the offer letter from HR and I was good to go. And this was around the 4th of July, and I figured, well, things are taking longer because it's the 4th of July. And I finally got him to respond back to an email. He's like, "I recently left Long Island University. Contact the provost." But the provost was kind of like, "Well, I can't hire." This was an associate dean job. I can't hire an associate dean without a dean. So I was kind of like left hanging a little bit. And then I had continued to apply to other jobs. And I think he circulated my name a little bit. And lo and behold, I hate to say it, especially after this weekend, but a Naval Academy grad saw my application and he gave me a call. No, actually, fantastic individual. Turned out that we both graduated from the academies at the same year. We both graduated in 1996. He graduated from the Naval Academy. I graduated from West Point. So um, again, he saw my resume and said, I should talk to this guy, and that was kind of my gateway in.
I wasn't going to bring up the Army Navy game, by the way. So I will say that, although it was a good year for, I'm as a Marine, one day a year, I am cheering hard for my Navy brethren, and it was a good one this year. But I'm somehow, I guess I'd say somehow, I'm not surprised that it worked through you finding a connection, and certainly a West Point connection to kind of at least start the process off and to pass it on to another veteran that helped you get where you are. And then, I mean, interesting story too of you, not surprising once again that once you got there, they found that you were probably had a lot more qualifications than they expected and put you in as, the ops guy. I mean, that is what we do, obviously, as military veterans every do. I mean, we're comfortable in chaos. We're used to having these kind of, all right, we need somebody to point man for these projects. And we do it every day. And I don't think we really think about the value that it brings a lot of time to organizations, but to see quickly that, and happy to see that the university realized it, and it took COVID to put you in that spot. But clearly, I mean, do you feel like you were in the right spot at the right time to kind of make that happen? I mean, it seems like a pretty cool, just a unique circumstance, but somehow they recognized the skills that you had. And it sounded like that was a pretty good fit, at least for a little while during that crisis time frame.
Yeah, for sure. It was, I mean, I guess good luck, but also the fact that I kind of at least vocalized in a coherent manner that, what I thought one might need to bring to the table to make this mission, if you will, successful, in a short, concise manner. And it was enough to at least have them give me a chance. And I really did appreciate the chance. And I really appreciated the idea that as I started approaching the problem, I kept on expanding my needs and my desires. But I was kind of like, here's what I see as the problem. If we want to do this right, here's the resources I need. Here's the people I need to talk to. And it was almost every time, yeah, you spot on, go for it, go for it. And, to the point where they're like, I needed something. And they just call up whoever that person is and say, I'm sending this guy to you, do whatever he wants, type of thing. So I was essentially able to speak on behalf of the chief operating officer and the president in a lot of ways, and they trusted that what I was doing was in the best interest of the university, which was, quite, as I look back on it, quite a responsibility that I just kind of went with.
Yeah, I mean, again, you get thrown into the breach, and you just kind of your instincts kick in, and you made it happen. And it is great to see. And again, not surprising something happened like that. So, I guess we kind of move fast forward a little bit. I mean, how many years you end up being there, and what was the actual pivot from Long Island University over to ACP, and kind of how'd that happen?
Yeah, so I was there for 3 years and a little bit more than 3 years. And I got to the point where I could not, I felt like I had more potential and growth, but there was nowhere to grow to, if you will. And so I was doing a lot of different things, learning a lot, and I felt I had a good grasp on that. And by that point, I figured, well, in my mind, the reason why I wasn't getting those other 200 jobs I applied for was because I didn't have the experience in the civilian world. Now I have the experience in the civilian world. Let me see what else is out there. The motivation, honestly, was I felt I could do more, and I felt that I was probably getting. I don't mean this. I'm not speaking negatively, but we do this oftentimes for good people. Is I always felt like I was getting taken advantage of, right? Like I was being sent to problems to compensate for other people that weren't doing their job or that had left and all that type of stuff. And so I felt like I could do this now somewhere else, and I think I could be recognized for it and help out. And so I just started casually looking, and luckily came across American Corporate Partners at the time. The job was to, when I spoke with our founder, was to, kind of take over the day-to-day operations and running of the place eventually. And that happened, pretty quickly. After maybe 6 months or so after I had been here, I had been able to step into some, take on some additional responsibilities and get to that point where I was trusted to be able to do that. So now I'm involved in just about every aspect of ACP.
Can you talk a little bit? Again, I'm pretty familiar with ACP, but I'm sure a lot of our audience may not be. I'd love to hear a couple things. I mean, talk a little bit maybe about the history of how it was founded. I think it's an interesting story for what its initial purpose was, and really what I want to get to is what has it grown to and what's it doing now. But I think it's important to understand, where AC why it came into existence, and then we'll talk a little more about kind of where it's morphed into, which is pretty amazing stuff to see.
Sure. So, as the story goes, our founder, Sid Goodfriend, who's still very much involved in the day to day of the success of ACP, he was an investment banker working near in Manhattan, near the World Trade Centers when the planes went into 9/11. Um, Obviously, like most Americans, pretty greatly impacted by that day and that the events, and was not, at that point in his life, was not in the position to go join the military or anything like that, but wanted to find ways to help continue to serve, and to serve in some way. So as time went on, he continued to look for those opportunities. Um, did well in his career, and in 2008, if you remember, that was when the surge was happening, and we had a lot of military service members deployed overseas, and he had this thought, well, they're gonna at some point they're gonna have to come back, and they're gonna have to reintegrate into society. And as he thought through his life and how he was able to overcome some of these big challenges, he thought, I always had a mentor to look up to help me through my career. And so, because of the position he was in, he had a lot of relationship with higher level people at companies, and he pitched the idea to a few people and said, I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna start this nonprofit, and the goal is to mentor veterans as they're coming out of the service to help them get integrated into the civilian world. And so, in 2008, he quit his job and did just that.
Now, it's an amazing story. I mean, for a non-veteran to be able to see that need and step up. I mean, I'm always impressed by what Sid has done for this community as a guy that just wanted to find a way to give back. Because most of the people you talk to in this industry, were veterans and are have some connection. But I think his story is wonderful in that regard in particular. And again, I know it started with, I say, humble roots. I mean, it was a good idea that he wanted to share with his buddies on Wall Street. And that was pretty much, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't that the focus of ACP initially, to get veterans jobs on Wall Street? It was always bigger than that.
Well, he started with companies that he knew, which were, because he was in the financial services industry. That's where he had the most initial connections, right? So it was never necessarily only geared for those type of jobs, but it just so happened that, like, when you're starting off, you got to kind of go with the low hanging fruit, and the low hanging fruit were people that he knew at the industry that loved the idea and were like, yeah, we'd love to help, right? So that's where it started. And in the first year, they had 6 corporate partners and helped about 300 people, and now we have over 100, probably over 120 corporate partners, and help at any given time. We have over 5,100 current protege mentor relationships going on at any given time, and each year we're helping 4 to 5 thousand people have gone through the program. This year we've had over 20,000 applications, which is the highest we've ever had for the program.
That's amazing. I've been, I mean, very proud to be a mentor with ACP. I think I'm on my fifth um, protege now. and have loved it. I mean, I'd love to hear a little more too about, again, I know I understand the mentor protege part as someone that's been involved with it, but how does someone that wants to do this as a either as a mentor or a protege? I mean, does it just go to your page? What do you recommend as far as someone that wants to be a mentor or is looking for a mentor? What's what's the best way to do that? And we talk a little bit about too, I think, if you don't mind, what makes ACP different? Because there's other mentoring opportunities out there. I mean, but y'all are, and the way you do it, again, as a guy that's been through it as the mentor, I think really works. But I'd love to kind of hear you talk about that as well.
Yeah, so the best way to apply to the program is go to our website. It's acp-usa.org. And you can find a button to apply as a veteran or a mentor. And the great thing is when you apply within 24 to 48 hours, you'll get an email from our team that basically talks about the next steps. Thanks you for being a part of the program and goes through the next steps. Part of it is making sure you understand the commitment that you're signing up for, what the program's about. But it also is an ask for you to set up a time to have a conversation with one of our operations associates. And if anything about ACP is special, it's those operations associates that we have.
So yeah, as a follow up to that, I'd love to be able to kind of understand what differentiates ACP from others. I mean, I know there's other programs that do mentoring, have mentoring type programs, but having been a mentor myself with ACP, I'd love to kind of talk about the differentiators for ACP and how folks that want to join, it's either a mentor or a protege, should sign up and get involved.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with the end first. So anyone interested in working with ACP can go to our website, acp-usa.org, and they can find a button to click to sign up as a veteran protege uh, or a mentor. So you can click there, and then there's an application process. Once you fill out that application, it shouldn't take a few minutes. Then when you fill that out, you'll get a call from or an email from one of our staff members within 24 to 48 hours. And that email is going to kind of describe the program a little bit, but then also ask to set up a time to talk with you. And when you do that, they set up a time that is convenient for you. You call in and you talk to one of our operations associates. And that's kind of our secret sauce, if you will. A very special part of our program is that every person will talk to one of our operations associates. We have a staff of almost 80. And when you call in to your appointment, if you're a mentor or a protege, really what they're going to do is try to understand who you are and what your goals are. If you're a protege, do you know what industry you want to get into? What's your background? What things you like? What things you don't like? As much information they can find out about you, and then they're going to turn around. They do the same thing with any mentor that signs up. They ask them what they're comfortable mentoring in, what their background, what their skills. We build that profile on both of you, and then as we finish up with the protege, then we go into our mentor pool by hand individually and try to find the best mentor for them based off of all the questions that they answered. So there's no IT algorithm. It's really a search in our system based off of what they heard you saying, which ends up creating some great mentor protege relationships, connecting two people that probably would have never met any other way. And oftentimes they end up being lifelong friends because of the bonds that they build. And so that mentor call is super important. Once we think we found the match, we present both the protege and the mentor with kind of a bio of the other person and ask each of them, would you like to work with this person? And if one of them says no, we say, okay, we'll try again. Once they both agree, then we introduce them and kind of they're off and running. Now, what's special about our program is that it's not a one-off mentorship. What we do is pair these people up, and we hope that they will stay with each other for upwards of a year. Some people less, but oftentimes we will track them for up to a year. And during that time, we are checking in with them, making sure that they're getting the resources that they need if they're working on something that they could use more resources, or helping make any connections that they need, answer any questions along the way. And so we're hoping that they have an hour a month conversation, up to, as I mentioned, for a year. Some people go longer than a year. We don't track them past that. Some people end a little earlier than a year, but it's really based off that relationship and what's best for both individuals. And so this individual touch, this following up, the checking in, providing resources is really, I think, what makes us special, as well as kind of the longer term relationship that the protege and the mentor end up forming.
Yeah, certainly from my lens, that year long piece of it is huge, right? Because you really do get to build rapport with someone and know what they're looking at, and you kind of see the ups and downs of their transition. In many times, if you're dealing with a transition veteran going through that process, and I've really enjoyed that. And I honestly didn't know. I assumed it's more like a Match.com like thing where people put in their information and they had these and it kind of matched together. I didn't know it was that manual. But I guess, if is there one thing, if I'm a protege, right? I'm a transitioning veteran and I am, looking for a mentor. What is the most important thing to find someone in the right industry? Is it a rank? Is there no right pattern or rhyme or reason for that? My thought would be, if you knew that you wanted to be in, let's call it consulting, that you'd want a mentor that was in that business. But maybe not. Maybe it's just you want someone that was in the Navy and you're in the Navy, or someone that is from an area. Have you seen anything that really does kind of say, okay, if you tell me the industry and this, it really makes it better? Or is it just really kind of random? I'm just curious if you have any data like that.
Yeah. So the beauty of it is, again, it's that human interaction, right? So we ask you those questions, right? What's most important to you? But I'll tell you, well, one thing I want everyone out there listening to understand is that sometimes you don't know what you want to do or what you can do when you get out of the military, and that's totally fine too. So we have mentors that have experience, that kind of have seen kind of the larger landscape and can kind of listen to you and talk you through, like, oh, what jobs did you like in the military? What did you do in that job? Oh, that sounds like this. Did you like this? Or this sounds like this, right? And help guide them to kind of an area in which they're looking into. But as you mentioned, what we find the most success is, if you know what industry you want to get into, is finding that person that is also in that industry. But who better to know, as you mentioned, consulting? Who better to learn about consulting than someone actually doing it, right? Or that's been through that path. So that's where we find the best matches, and that's what we prioritize if there's no other major requests, right? We listen to any request and we try to do our best. So if you're a woman and you'd like to have a woman mentor, we're going to find that. Now, the challenge is, right, if you want a woman that lives in California that does this particular job, it might be harder to do, right? But we'll sit there, then we'll come back to you and say, hey, we got two of the three that you asked for, or whatever. What do you think? And again, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So we've had people that are like, yeah, I don't know why you picked this mentor for me. And then we kind of explain to them, and we say, what do you think? And they say, yeah, let me talk to them. And they're like, I can't believe it. You nailed it. And I would never have thought, right? So sometimes you got to trust the process a little bit, but it is really like you have an own personal agent that's trying to, do the best they can to find you the right match.
No, that's great. And again, I've been matched with people all over the spectrum too. Personally, as a mentor, some that because when I was at Amazon, it made sense, they were interested in that field, but some more just because I think of my more broad, generic background. So I've definitely seen that from the mentor side. Every one of my projects has been different and trying to get different places, but you do your best to kind of get them there. The next question I would ask you is, I mean, I think that's probably what ACP is known for the best, is the mentor protege program that you have. But I know you do more than that. And what other things we talk about? Like, what's new? What are you proud of? Where are you going? Because I think don't get me wrong, that's an amazing program. But I know you do a lot more than that. I'd love to kind of hear other things that maybe ACP has that people are less aware of, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we call that kind of our flagship program, right? The mentoring is definitely the bread and butter of what we do. We do several other things that we think help our community, as well as continue to grow and learn, right? So first, I'll tell you that probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now, we went to doing LinkedIn Lives. So we do LinkedIn Live twice a week now. Sometimes with our corporate partners, sometimes professional development, where we're trying to provide more information to our community, right? With corporate partners, I'll tell you, I don't know about you, but when I got out of the military, I didn't know a lot about corporate America. So if you would have asked me about a company, if I wasn't using their product or saw them in the news, I wouldn't know who they are, what they did. And even if I did, for example, say Campbell Soup, if you said, would you like to work at Campbell Soup? I'd be like, well, no, I'm not going to be pouring soup in the cans, right? But now I know that there's so much more to these corporations, right? Every one of these companies have project managers and logistics and finance and lawyers, and you can go on and on and on, HR, right? So almost anything that a military person wants to do could find a home in these big companies, and that's something that we try to impress upon with these LinkedIn Lives. When we invite our companies to come on, they talk about who they are, what they do, what's the culture like, because that's important. I think sometimes we overlook that when you're getting out, but you want to know what the culture's like so that you if you're going to fit in, you're going to like what you're doing. And they talk about, a lot of times we bring on veterans, right? And they can talk about their journey, like how they got their foot in the door at that company, and then how they traversed their career at that company. And so really trying to give you a better picture of like a company that you might not have heard of before, but oh, by the way, it might be a good fit for you. So and we also, at the same time, we're showing these corporate partners that we have, we're showing that they're military friendly, right? They have a relationship where they're working with us and they're willing to share this information. That's super helpful. We also do kind of career development things as well there on LinkedIn Live, where we'll have someone, maybe like yourself or some other expert in the area, where they talk about the importance of your LinkedIn profile, or tips for your resume, or interview skills, or anything. We've had like dress for success, right? Just some of these questions that you have that you maybe are scared to ask, or didn't think of when you're getting out. Maybe we talk about benefits and negotiating for jobs. So we do those professional developments and LinkedIn Live. We also have kind of more customized programming for some of our mentorship programs. So, for example, we have a women's program, we have a spouse program, and really what makes it different is we just spend a little bit of additional time making sure we pair them with the right person, give them the right resources, have the right programming so that they can benefit from where they're at. And finally, as I mentioned, kind of growing and listening to our population, we've recently found that about a quarter of our proteges coming in say that they have an interest in small business or entrepreneurship. And so we said, well, what can we do that doesn't add the redundancy to the space already, but complement the space? Because there are a lot of great nonprofits that help veteran entrepreneurs out there. What we decided to create, which is what we call our Ventures program, is not only a place where you can get a mentor, and that mentor doesn't have to be a small business owner. They could be, if you're having a challenge in marketing, they could be a marketing expert, right? Or you're interested in understanding the finance aspects, they could be a finance person, right? But we do get you a mentor like the flagship mentorship program, but they're really focused on helping you in the area that you're looking for in your entrepreneurial journey. But then we also created an online community which we call the Village, where you can go in and get resources at any time. Most of these resources all of them are vetted, but they're also provided by some of our big corporate partners, where they're providing resources on different aspects of running a small business, starting a small business, funding, all these different areas. So you can go in and get resource at any time. And then finally, you can also go in there and ask questions at any time. So we can kind of crowdsource some information so if you're having a problem with, or maybe you're thinking about starting a franchise in Texas and you're like, hey, does anybody know, is there any particular policies or laws that I need to be concerned about if I start a franchise in Texas? Or I'm really having a problem marketing my organization. Like, can someone help me out? And oftentimes someone will respond back with their advice, or, hey, send me a private message and we'll meet offline and I can help you with that.
That's fantastic. And I honestly, I have not used that to its fullest and wasn't aware of some of those new programs. And I love that you're doing the small business and entrepreneurial piece, because that is such a huge entryway for veterans to get into that world. But I think it's underlooked or under not as well understood as kind of your traditional path to a big, top 100 company out there. And I love the fact you talked about culture, because I talk about that all the time too. That if you're going to find a job that's going to be more than a job, but a career and a place you want to be for the long haul, focusing on that culture is so important, because I always say, as a veteran, you can probably do the job at multiple companies. But if you're going to stay there and you're going to feel like you're blend in and part of that team, you really need to study the culture, because, as you can certainly appreciate, the culture at Amazon is different than JP Morgan, is different than Wells Fargo, is different than Target, or is different than, Google. I mean, they all truly have a unique and different culture. And I don't think I get that when people are transitioning, they just like, I need a job, I need a paycheck, and I do understand that. But if you don't take the time to focus on the culture, I think more often than not, you can find a bad fit initially and might not be there for more than a year or two before realizing, man, I wish I would have done a little more research on that, and having those conversations ahead of time and providing that information from ACP, I think, is hugely beneficial. So I love hearing that. And I'd also put say a plug in for the MilVet in particular. At the MilVet, our goal is obviously to talk to and try to help transitioning veterans get into private equity, venture capital backed companies, in executive roles. So a pretty niche thing that we're doing, and it's typically not necessarily for the transitioning veterans. It's for folks that have been out for a while, maybe got their MBA and are looking for that career change. Can read a profit and loss statement, but you're also helping folks that have not just direct transitioning. I mean, what's kind of the breakdown of your population? It's primarily transitioning, I assume, but it's more than that too. I mean, I know it's more than that, but do you have any idea, like, numbers of kind of what the composition of your proteges or look like, sort of?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would say that it's more than half of our proteges are definitely still in the military on their way out, right? Their last few months of transition. And that if you're out there wondering when to sign up for ACP, that would be, in my opinion, probably the best situation, where you're signing up with ACP 6 or 8 months before you're getting out, because then you can really take the time with your mentor to walk through that whole process. Now, we do have oftentimes veterans that have been out for a while, kind of as you mentioned, they might have got a job, realized maybe this isn't for me, or they've been out there for a while and they're not moving up where they want to, or they're ready for a change, and they can come to us as well. So that's another part, probably, I don't know, maybe another 30%, and then or so. And then we have the spouse component. So we work with active duty spouses that are caregivers, or Gold Star spouses. And that's a whole nother demographic of people that have enormous potential, but sometimes need the additional help to, one, take care of themselves for a while, but two, help them through, how they explain gaps in their resume, or, the fact that they had all these different jobs in several years. And I think with the right guidance, these people find, rewarding careers, and finally have some time, that focus on themselves when they work with their mentor. So yeah, I think the majority of people are transitioning out. Definitely some from veterans that are looking for something different, and then the spouse component.
No, that's great. And really, thanks for sharing that you are doing stuff, things that support not only our veterans, but our spouses, the caregivers, and the larger community. I think it's something that I know our spouses in particular, their unemployment rates are over 20%. More needs to be done in that space. So great to see you leading in that space. I mean, helping our small businesses, helping our spouses. That's fantastic to see that so much is being done to help, our really the military community as a whole. And from starting in somewhat, say, humble roots, with a few companies and a guy that's want to do the right thing to where you are now is really impressive. So I just want to say thanks. Truly, thank you for the time today and sharing some insights on what ACP is doing and where it came from and where it's going. And I guess I'll kind of leave the last word to you. Anything else you want to share that words of wisdom to our veterans, words of wisdom about ACP in general? Would love to kind of get that before we wrap up.
Yeah, I'll quickly just give a few quick tips I hear oftentimes when people are out there in the job search world is I think plan early, do your research, and network. You never know how just a LinkedIn comment or conversation could turn into something better. So I think those are my tips to people transitioning. Now about ACP, we are always looking to help more veterans and spouses. So please sign up. I don't think you'll be disappointed. We have definitely over a 98% satisfaction rating. So please sign up. And if you're out there and you've already successfully transitioned and you feel like it's time for you to give ahead or forward, please sign up to be a mentor. We could always use more mentors, and all that can be done on our website, acp-usa.org. And surely, last but not least, if you want to donate, there's ways to donate as well, because we do make this service free to our veterans and spouses. So thanks so much, Bo, for having me on here. I feel honored and privileged to be in the company of someone like you who does so much for the military community and continues. So thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you again. Thanks for sharing more about ACP, and look forward to working with you more at the MilVet side and getting some of our vets into some exec roles in the PE and VC world as well. But thanks so much for the time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, Rich. Out here.